So I've got the coach pulled back to the shop. I have it pulled up on some blocks, and my basically it's at ride height, but it's up on some blocks so I can get under it comfortably and be able to see what I need to do. I run into a little snag when I was under there last night looking at things. The generator on it comes back so close to the H-frame that I have less than 2 inches, about 1.5 inches back there, and my actual watts pivot bracket measures over almost 1 1/4 in itself, 1 1/8, sorry, 1 1/8 in itself. So I'm gonna have to get creative somehow here. Someone on the forum said that Monacos are like snowflakes, no two are alike, because they build the chassis and everything. Where Roadmaster was a division of Monaco, they would build the chassis for that exact coach as it was being built to optimize storage, handling, all those, you know, the floor plan, everything that's going to be built on top of that chassis. Well, boy, were they right, because I think so far of all the ones I've seen as far as the RR8R chassis, I think mine's probably got the least amount of space to deal with. And I thought it'd be a piece of cake because I didn't have hydraulic leveling jacks. All I have is air leveling, so I was thinking this was going to be a cakewalk. I guess that's what I get for thinking prematurely. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and crawl underneath and I'll kind of show you what I'm up against. So here you can kind of see what my dilemma is. I've got the back of the generator right here. There's the H-frame, and I've got all the fuel lines, the electrical, everything coming up in that, filling up that gap. Now what they've done is they've taken, it looks like a piece of 1/8 inch by probably 2 inch strap, welded it to this vertical piece, bent it to go along the back, and then it's welded the same place on the other side. What they did that for is to keep all the cables and wires and everything from interfering with the H-frame, as the H-frame is traveling up and down throughout its range of travel. Problem with that is where this cabling and stuff has gotten back behind there and bunched up a little bit. Now that this piece is actually bowed, so it's not straight across the back, it's actually bowed across. So I have about 1 inch and 3/8, 1.5 in the middle. So I'm kind of at a dilemma here what to do. I kind of contemplated about flipping the design and going back to the traditional manner in which the Watts link is supposed to be connected, and put the weld a plate onto the H-frame to give it a little more thickness, drill and tap it and put the pivot plate on the H-frame, and then have the rods go to left and right, top, up and down over here to these supports. The issue with that would be is I still have to space these supports out to get past the generator. So if I have to do that, I may as well put the Watts link, try to put the Watts link back on that bracket, because that way it will at least tie the left and right sides together and triangulate these vertical pieces. Otherwise, if I put the Watts link on the front, my thinking is the rod's going left to right to these two pieces, then not being triangulated, it would be able to exert pressures left and right without them being tied together. So the benefit would be is I would have a piece going across them and triangulating it, gusseting it if you will, and then the brackets out here, or actually it'd be, yeah, just inside there on the H-frame, which would be where the rods would connect. So I think I'm going to push the generator out and see what that does for me, if I can maybe maneuver some wiring and see what kind of distance I can gain. Okay, I think I got a plan here. If I move the AC side over to the side and pull it up and attach it with some frame clamps, there's about a 4-inch gap between the side piece, the side verticals, and the side of the generator. So I think there'll be enough room for that cable to just lay down between and still stay well enough out of the way of the trailing arms for the suspension. So that's the plan on that side. On the opposite side, turn around here, I'm going to do something similar. I've undone all the wiring from the generator as far as how they've got it fastened, and I've got it tucked up along the frame rail. So now what I've done, it started, no turning back now. I cut this piece that was welded across the back off, So I just took a die grinder and cut through those welds, remove that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cycle the generator in and out. I'll have my son cycle it in and out while I lay underneath and make sure the cables are going to do what I want them to do. Then, I think then I can go ahead and space out my 4.5 inches I need to come out to. Then with the piece right across the back, I think I'm going to be real close to having that generator just basically bump right up against that piece where the Watts link mounts to, the cross brace that triangulates it, guessets it. It should come right up. If it doesn't touch it, it'll be real close. Then on the opposite side, I'll put a space about a 3/8 inch plate, small piece, weld it on, drill and tap it to the 5/8 11, which I'm going to use to mount the pivot plate. So that should give me about 5/8 of an inch. I'm using 1/4 inch and then a 3/8. That should give me about 5/8 inch thickness to drill and tap into. It should be adequate to support that. Then that's the hard part. Then as long as I'm probably going to machine the head of the bolt down and possibly the brass spacer a little bit, bushing a little bit to keep some clearance between the H-frame and that piece. But I think that might get me enough to be manageable. It's going to be close. I don't think I'll have much more than, if my math in my head comes out, I'll probably be looking at around 100 to 125 thousandths gap back there, but which should be adequate, even with the head of the bolt shaved down. So I'm going to go ahead and knock these couple of welds down the rest of the way with a grinder real quick so it's smooth, and then while I got it out, I'll probably hit the edges, kiss the edges of this where I'm going to start welding and knock the undercoating off, and then probably start getting some vertical pieces cut, and then chuck the 3 inch by 1.5 inch piece up in the mill and drill and tap. I don't know, I'll probably do 6 or 8 holes on each side, 1 inch spaced apart for the corresponding cross member. So I'll come back in and report once I cycle this generator in and out. So I've got my measurements for the verticals, so I'm going to start cutting them now. 26 inches the height. Set them up here in the horizontal bandsaw. one piece. Okay, now cutting the 1.5 by 1.5. Now I'm cutting a piece that's 3/8 of an inch thick, 3-inch wide, by about a foot long, and this will actually be welded to the back piece and then drilled and tacked through this piece and the 1/4 by 6. So it'll give me 5/8 thickness for a nut, or for the threads. So this piece I don't think needs to span all the way across. I don't think there's going to be much fore and aft movement on this. It's mainly going to be side to side. I think the 1/4 by 6 would be adequate for the strength. I'm just doing this mainly just to make a thicker nut plate to be able to get enough threads for that 5/8 bolt for the pivot length. So that's the only reason why I'm adding this piece. Alright, so I've got all my rough cuts made. I've just got to go through and clean up the edges. So these will stand up against the pieces that are already there. Then this piece will go stood up alongside it because I need to come out 4.5 inches. So this will give me 1 inch plus the 3 inches will be 4.5 inches. Then these will be the nut plates that will actually, I've got this in here marked. I'll use that, let me make sure it shows up on camera. So I'll start 8 inches up from the bottom. I need to make sure I indicate. That's the bottom. So I'll start 8 inches up. I'm actually going to place it, my first one, at about 9 inches, but I want to come up 8 inches to give myself some adjustability. So I'll drill and tap all these holes. I'll probably drill one above and below it, so that when I snake this piece up inside of there, I'll actually plug weld it, weld this nut plate. I don't see any sense in running this nut plate the full length of it. It's just a waste of material and really unnecessary. All it's for is a nut plate. So it'll be inside of this tube. So this 6-inch by 1/4 inch piece will span across it from one side to the other. Here's the 6-inch piece that'll span across them. That piece will go in the middle and I'll offset it. Drill and tap. This will give me 5/8 thickness. So I'll drill and tap for a 5/8 16, or excuse me, 5/8 11. And then what I had to do is I had to take and shave down the head of the bolt and shave down the bushing a little bit just to give myself enough clearance. So I've stacked it all up, all these components stacked up like so, with my rods going left to right. This will give me about 100 to 125 thousandths clearance from the H-frame to the head of that bolt when it's all assembled. So it's tight up underneath there, but I believe this is going to work. And rerouting those wiring, the AC side and the battery cables and the fuel lines on the other side, and letting them drape alongside the generator, I think was the easiest and probably best option. I've run the generator in and out several times now, and they lay down right where they need to be. I need to put some, I'm going to wall them up underneath with a welder. I'm going to weld a couple of studs in a few places to put some frame clamps to hold the wiring and the fuel lines, just so they don't vibrate and chafe on anything. But that's going to be my best bet and allow me to mount this Watts link in the same fashion that the guys on the RR8R chassis are. Like I said, I contemplated for a short time about mounting it on the H-frame, but I like the thought of having this piece tied across side to side and giving it some extra strength. So I think this will, I actually think this will work.